call 0345 6060 973.
At 7:49, we'll come back to our conversation about Ukraine in a moment. Let's reflect what's on the front page of the LBC website and a couple of the other newspapers. Boris Johnson will today hail Ukraine's finest hour when he becomes the first world leader to address its parliament since the war broke out. The Prime Minister will, we read, invoke Winston Churchill's wartime rhetoric as he announces another £300 million of new military aid in the video link speech to Secretary of State for International Trade and obviously Conservative MP Anne-Marie Trevelyan, who joins me now. How significant in your view is it, Secretary of State, that it's Boris Johnson who'll be making this address, as being the first leader? Good morning to you.
Good morning, Nick. I think it's very significant, and I think it reflects the absolute commitment that the Prime Minister has given to supporting President Zelensky, the Ukrainian government and the Ukrainian people to defeat this illegal and unprovoked invasion of their country by Putin. The Prime Minister has been clear from the minute it happened that we had to do all in our power to ensure that Putin fails, and we have done everything in our power, not only supporting with defensive equipment, and I think the Prime Minister will be announcing a further 300 million of commitments of various types of equipment to support them in their battle to defend themselves. But he's there because he and President Zelensky have struck up a very strong relationship, and he is supporting President Zelensky in his incredible leadership. Genuinely, I think no one can doubt that. But to really encourage them to keep going, we have local elections on Thursday, Nick, which we sort of take for granted, don't we? Some councillors have got some councillors up for election, and the turnout will probably be quite low, and some will win and some will lose. We take it for granted, but that's democracy in action. That's choice. That's the voters' choice in a safe and peaceful country. And the Ukrainians have had that threatened, and the Prime Minister is determined to do everything he can to support them.
Let me put to you, and I hear what you say, but some of my listeners would say, look, we've had no choice about this £300 million going to Ukraine. They feel for Ukraine, but they also say we have a cost of living crisis in this country. We have pressures on certain expenditures from the government. Why? Why is it right? 300 million, which is a lot of money, £300 million is effectively spent like that in Ukraine. Secretary of State.
So we are sending various pieces of equipment. And
I'm not asking what it is respectfully. I'm saying they would ask you justify it. You're a government minister. You're telling us that we're going to have to put up with NI increases and other taxation. Yet when you want to, they would say you can find 300 million quid to send to Kyiv. How come?
Absolutely, because we need to do all that we can to support them in their fight to ensure that this illegal war of Putin's fails. If we don't stand up for democracy and freedom, there is nothing. So the choices that governments make, and that's why when we have elections, people vote. We know that at local council level, Conservative councils run more effective services. 4 times as many potholes get filled in Conservative councils than local ones, Labour ones. There's all sorts of reasons why you make your choice at a local election, but it's about freedom. And the Prime Minister on the international stage and being, the leader of one of the great democratic nations of our world is determined both to speak out and call others to help, but also to help in practical ways. And I think all of us are wanting to see him do that and championing the work that's being done to support them.
While I have the benefit of you on the line, a couple of other questions, if I might, Secretary of State. Given the events over the weekend with hundreds of people making the crossing, is the Rwanda plan a failure before it even actually starts?
No, quite the opposite. So the Borders Bill became law at the end of the parliamentary session. And now the Home Office is able to start to operationalise the policy that will see some male migrants going to Rwanda for assessment of their
When do you think the first person
asylum
will start assessment? When will the first flights go out to Rwanda, do you imagine, Secretary of State?
So I'm afraid I can't tell you that, Nick, because I'm not privy to the detail, but I know that the teams are working at pace now that the law has been passed to operationalise that and make it a thing. So very clearly it was set out that, of course, this will relate to anyone since the 1st of January who may be eligible. Really, really importantly, though, what we need to continue to do is to remember why we're doing this, which is to stop those people smugglers who are making a great deal of money and putting
But it wouldn't appear to be stopping them, Secretary of State.
Risk.
We have 350 people across the weekend.
So that's why we continue to do this and use the tools that we have, and now this new tool in our armoury to try to reduce that impact, because we do not want to see vulnerable people. There are many legal ways to apply for asylum. We do not want to see vulnerable people put in those small boats and what is one of the busiest and choppiest waters across the Channel, so that we can make sure that we look after those and provide a home for those who are genuine asylum seekers.
All right. I came to Berwick-upon-Tweed earlier this year, sadly for all the wrong reasons. It was to attend a funeral, but it's a beautiful part of the world, and it's not far from Durham. Do we need to know more about what happened with Sir Keir and this so-called beer and pizza party? We now understand, or it is suggested that, instead of there being 6, 7 or 8 people, according to the gentleman who delivered the curry, it was more like 30. We have had exhaustive and exhausting inquiries into what might have happened at number 10. Do we need the same in dear Durham? Secretary of State.
So, in all situations where evidence is brought to the police, they should investigate it. We're police by consent in the UK. It's really important, and actually the British people were extraordinary in doing their best to follow the rules through the COVID pandemic, and that policing by consent is something that we need to cherish and maintain. So if Durham Constabulary have got, as you say, more information brought to them about a situation which may well have been in breach of the rules, they should investigate it and follow accordingly in the same way that Metropolitan Police has.
Do you believe Sir Keir when he says that following an arduous day on the election campaign trail of some beers and some curry and some pizzas, everybody went back to work straight after 10? Do you believe him?
So I went out on various campaign trails, as many of us did, when it was allowed that you could campaign, and I didn't, stop and have a meal with anybody at all. But that's why the Durham Constabulary need to have a look at the information that's now available and reach a conclusion accordingly.
Would you support the return of grammar schools, Anne-Marie Trevelyan?
So the change in the situation which Nadeem Zahawi announced recently in terms of allowing grammar schools to expand is one that I think is a good thing. There is much to be said for some of the really great work that grammar schools add to our educational programme. What's really important is we're continuing to see investment in education, and the work that Nadeem Zahawi is leading on, particularly in early years, making sure that we support those young people to get those skills early on is incredibly important. I'm a mathematician, as you know, Nick, and I'm very keen that we should see that grow. One of the things, of course, is making sure that we have fantastic young teachers coming through, and there's a really great programme to encourage more young people to come into education and to be part of this growing revolution. We already have fantastic teachers and fantastic schools, but there is much to do for that cohort. So grammar schools are one part of the mix, and I'm happy to see it. If there's an area, a council that wishes to have more, I think that's great. What we want is every child to have the opportunity to access a great school. OK. What about accessing your own home? The suggestion that the Prime Minister is wanting to convert Generation Rent into Generation Own, almost echoing Margaret Thatcher's flagship policy from, the 1980s? So one of the great challenges has been housing, and we are. There was a long period when not enough new homes were built. We have turned that around. We're building 300,000 new homes a year, and that's great. And we need to continue to do that to really build up that housing stock. But should these folk have the ability to buy their own homes? Are you in support of that, Secretary of State? So I was always a supporter of right to buy through Margaret Thatcher's years. I think it's a really great policy, and we'll see. I have no doubt that Michael Gove, within whose brief the whole housing challenge sits, will look at this very closely with the Prime Minister. Really important is that we build more homes, a mix of homes across the country that ensures that wherever you are, because we want to, as we level up, make sure that we have got great places to live with great jobs anywhere in the country. That's the great challenge, and Michael Gove is driving that forwards at pace. Lastly, and I sense this is a yes or no answer, it is reported that Conservatives are at odds over whether the party should choose from an all-female shortlist when selecting a candidate in the by-election following the departure of your colleague Neil Parish. Are you in favour of all-female shortlists, Secretary of State, yes or no? No. Why? Oh, that's two questions, Nick. You only wanted a yes or no answer. No, I don't, because women are amazing, and there are.
I bet you didn't
fantastic
need
women
an
coming
all-female shortlist to get to Berwick-upon-Tweed, did you?
So here's a small fact that not many people know except my constituents. No, we didn't. But we ended up in the final four all being women. And that's because we were all amazing women. And therefore, our association decided that happened to be 4 women who were the best to go forwards. And I was very honoured to be the one chosen. But there was no prescription in there. It was just that, we were presumably the best candidates for the job.
And that's how it should be down in Devon, the best candidate, irrespective.
That should be everywhere. Really important is we want to make sure that we bring forward more women who are maybe in all sorts of other professions, really to consider why a career in politics, local politics, or indeed national politics is one that they should take on. It's an incredibly rewarding, it's hard sometimes, but it's an incredibly rewarding role.
I've enjoyed our conversation. Thank you very much. Reminder, of course, everyone, the Secretary of State pointing to that speech, of course, the first leader, Boris Johnson, will be addressing the Ukrainian Parliament, Anne-Marie Trevelyan. Secretary of State for International Trade, thank you for your time. It's 8 o'clock on LBC. Let's get the latest news.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock, the UK is to provide the Ukrainian military with another £300 million